everyone, welcome to another Music Talk Tuesday. Apologize I had to delay this video up until now. I was pretty busy up until the middle of this week. I did mention that I would be delaying videos until Wednesday, but without further ado, let me address what I wanted to talk about for this particular Music Talk Tuesday, and that's songs about men, in particular ones that have either men in the title or reflect onto some form of the masculine side of the human species. So I thought it would be interesting to address this, considering that I did talk about in a previous video songs that are about women. So without further ado, let me address the first song, being The Man by, I want to make sure I get this name right, but I may trip it up, Aloe Blacc. Not entirely sure how you pronounce that. But what I think really actually works about this song is that it's very upbeat and catchy. It's very enjoyable to listen to. It gives off a very kind of smooth and cool vibe. It has that kind of R&B beat to it that just makes it very energizing, but yet still fairly slick in a way. It's kind of interesting in that sense. But basically, throughout the song, the narrator is sort of discussing how he is the man. But he sort of addresses it in a way that I think is designed to be, again, it's very positive. In other words, he's kind of talking about his self-confidence and that he's always wanting to stand up for what's right, and he is someone that is, again, very intelligent and can have, all the answers and whatnot. So he kind of sort of gives himself the kind of sort of praise. In other words, he sort of elaborates on how he's the man because of all of these things, because of his self-confidence, because of the fact that he will do what is right, and by the fact that he has these sort of skills of intelligence and sort of a sense of, again, finding out what's the correct way to approach something, or the right answer to something, or the person who can fix all the problems, so to speak. And I think this can be sometimes attributed to, I think, the, again, more masculine side of the human species. In other words, that those positive attributes of self-confidence and having all the answers, being able to kind of sort of think outside the box and, do what's, again, ultimately the right thing to do, and, all those kinds of things that, again, obviously they can be attributed to any gender, but at the same time, it sort of tries to reflect it, I think, again, in the more masculine of sense, where it's kind of like a sense of praise and individualism that oftentimes gets attributed more to the male side of the human species. So, but nonetheless, it really does work. It really does give you it gives you that, again, catchy beat, and at the same time, the vocals also sound very, stylish and cool and smooth as well. So you do get a real sense of, the person, at least, that the narrator's sort of trying to kind of emulate. But I think that's really all I can say about the first song. Moving on to the next one, Now You're a Man by Orgazmo, and I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I could be wrong. And this song is pretty interesting. Unlike the previous song, where it's pretty mellow and sort of down to earth. This one is kind of goofy. And I sort of enjoy the fact that it is very kind of out there and just nonsensical. But uh, it basically addresses sort of the question of, you know, sort of what makes a man a man. And then he sort of answers this in a very comedic way at points. And, you know, it's very over exaggerated. You know, you kind of feel the sort of, you know, the masculinity kind of shine through with the song. I mean, it really sounds like, yeah, gritty and just, yeah, I'm a man. And it's so, it's just really funny. It just has this kind of comedic touch to it that I think ultimately really works and is just fun to hear. Especially with the way the vocalist pronounces certain words, like when he says, "No, you're a man." He just says it like so. It, it's designed to be, again, a little bit more aggressive, but then at the same time, it's not aggressive in an intimidating way. It's kind of like it's like a goofy, you know, eccentric kind of, you know, balls off the wall, crazy kind of song. You know, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of looking at a ridiculous poster of, you know, these action movies or whatnot, where, you know, you got the guy who's got like the abs and whatnot, and he's just so, he just feels like so empowered or something, you know, he just has that pose or whatnot. And I think here it's sort of kind of commenting on sort of the ridiculousness, um, you know, like the over exaggeration. Uh, and it's not designed, I think, again, to be in any way trying to shame the masculine way. In doing so, I think it's trying to kind of celebrate the over exaggeration that sometimes, you know, takes shape, at least when it comes to, you know, how sort of uh, masculinity is kind of showcased, and it's really a fun little song that, again, is not trying to take itself too seriously, and in doing so, I think gives off a very comedic as well as fun and yet still kind of masculine effect as well. And so I think that really kind of really works to the song's advantage. Second to last song that I wanted, to briefly mention is "Man in the Mirror" by none other than Michael Jackson. Although this one I think is more, again, it has a more of a universal approach because it is addressing things that, again, obviously can be attributed to either gender. It still kind of tries to showcase onto things that, again, I think can be somewhat attributed to manhood. Because in the song it talks about certain people who are in poverty, and a lot of people falling on hard times. But this at the same time, it talks about how you sort of have to change sort of yourself first before you can ultimately help anybody else. So sort of the man in the mirror is kind of, you know, you sort of looking at yourself and, you know, trying to make the better changes in your life. And in doing so, that ends up sort of impacting everybody else. And I think that's, again, obviously this can be attributed to either gender, but at the same time, I think the desire for the self-improvement and whatnot, again, obviously does lie in either gender. But here, I think it's something that can be, again, I think more attributed to, again, being a man because of the, again, the self-confidence, the desire for, again, improvement to sort of, you know, kind of be the best, you know, those kinds of things, and in doing so make an impact, and have goals and whatnot. I can see that aligning fairly well, and again, I think something that a lot of men in particular can identify with. Um, so I think, again, it has that Michael Jackson pop sound that everybody's come to know and love. But I think its message and then just the way it kind of gets it across, and how it tries to be kind of that kind of more empowering song, I think ultimately works, and it kind of gets you off your feet, and makes you want to get up and kind of just take on the world. So I think it really does work for a song that is trying to kind of address it through that sort of perspective, and in doing so, I could see why it's more, I think, attributed to, again, man. And lastly, but not leastly, or least, I'm Still a Guy by Brad Paisley. This is another more comedic song. And it sounds country, so if you're deep into that, this will be right up your alley. But what it kind of addresses is the narrator sort of saying that, no matter what I go through life or what I end up doing, I'm still going to be a guy. In other words, I'm going to still kind of be myself. I'm not going to try to, really change who I am. I'm just going to, embrace the, I guess, man that I am, so to speak. And that's kind of what he talks about in the song. And he does it in a very funny and, again, almost down to earth and yet comedic way. And the lyrics, I think, ultimately really do highlight the maybe pressure of him to not kind of be himself or be the man that he is, and he kind of feels uneasy about it, but at the same time, he still shrugs it off and says, well, I'm still going to be me. So and I think that's something that really works, and I think really again is something that I think in particular a lot of fellas, guys can identify with. And also, again, I like how, again, it's very over exaggerated. It's like the uh, uh, Orgazmo song, where it kind of sounds a little bit overblown, but at the same time, it's still addressing kind of something that's sort of unique and identifiable with the male side of the human species. So, yeah, those are all of the songs, though, that I wanted to really discuss. I think they all offer something that's rather unique and interesting, and I think worthy of recommendation. I'll be sure to put the links below. Feel free to let me know if you have any particular songs that have reflected onto this sort of topic, or at least certain aspects that we sometimes maybe attribute to manhood. But yeah, I think that's really all I can say, though. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.